Hello. Voice test. Well, all right. Next time we're gonna have to use four corners for this meeting.
Hello.
Hi, Reed.
Hey, Grumpity, you beat me here. Well done.
Thank you. Everybody else beat me to a chair, though, so that is
Yeah, I
okay.
was just looking around. There's not really a chair for anyone. I think we are going to have to use four corners for this next time. This is fantastic. Welcome, everybody. It's March. Happy March. Hope everybody's doing well. Really excited to see so many of you here. I'm just going to stand over here in the corner. Hopefully that's all right. Since there's so many new faces, and I love hearing that, I love saying that. I've been saying that a lot last few weeks or last few months. Let's go over just real fast the way this tends to go, so everybody has an idea of what's going on. We'd like to start by just highlighting a few of the things that we've done over the last month. New things that we want to make sure that you guys are all seeing. Anything that we put some feedback on. Grumpity likes to talk about things that are coming up next-ish, and then we usually open it up for question and answer. And that tends to be the largest portion of this, and I suspect that will be the same today. So let's get right into it, since we're all here. A few things to start out. By the way, I'm Reed Linden. Nice to see you all. We basically want to make sure that we're reiterating that right now we're kind of in this phase where we're working on three very large projects. And for those of you that review, but these really are name change. We're getting very close on that. Kira may want us to talk about that later. And then next after name change is Premium Plus, and then upgrade, or the uplift to AWS. Now, when I say next, that doesn't mean that all of our developers are working on only these projects and then we'll move over to the next ones. We do have switching in and out. So just so you guys all have a good priority order. So that being said, the things that we have been doing that aren't those things are, we fixed up monthly events. We've done a lot of work on those in the last couple of months. On the events itself, but monthly events themselves, we're doing this thing where you would set up a monthly event and it would only recur on the exact day. So like if you set it up on March, let's say 4th, it would always occur on April 4th and May 4th, as opposed to, like the first Wednesday of March, for example. This one. So we got that fixed. Jack, are you not able to hear me? I'm talking on voice. I'm the only one. Hopefully Jack gets fixed. I don't see a voice dot for Jack. Poor Jack. We've been doing a lot of improvements, and basically along the way of the uplift to AWS. These include security improvements. These include things like OS versions that needed to be updated, which are also security version improvements. Efficiency things, upgrading to new code bases to make those go faster. All of this. It's mostly not user-facing, but in the background, it makes all of our stuff stronger, faster, more secure. You probably won't notice, and that's actually a good thing. Our entire goal is for this uplift project to happen without anybody noticing. You may have noticed that we've been playing around with how the stipends work. We believe we have that all fixed up now. If you are still having some trouble with your stipends, please let us know. Definitely go ahead and bring it up here if you like, but contacting your local friendly support team member is also a good way to take care of, since we can't pay you, they can. We've been doing a lot of faceless stuff. Our community pages, our landing pages, go.secondlife.com. These have all gotten a nice facelift. In one case, one of the images that was up had been there for about so we put something up that's a little bit brand new. We're very excited about that. I know it's one of those little we like our old stuff. We do. We've got a lot of nostalgia for it, but sometimes it's time to get into the front. And we've been doing some site upgrades, particularly to the community site. So the community forums are now in a better state as well. Did I miss anything, Kira? Grumpity? It's actually a busy February. It's a short month.
I think you got it. And it's a short month, but it's been a good month for us, so I'm pretty excited. I am pleased to share that in terms of economic activity in SL, February has been great. And I certainly hope that our merchants have been seeing that as well.
Hey, this is Brett Linden. I'm going to jump in. I just see Charlotte referencing questions that were pre-submitted. I work in marketing, and I want to, let people know that we just published a pretty in-depth blog post that speaks to our roadmap and what we're doing and are going to do this year. And I'll get that link and put it in here if anybody wants to check that out. Charlotte, a lot of your questions, obviously, as you know, do not pertain to marketing. So I'll just start off by addressing those that I think are in my domain. I think this blog post kind of speaks to a lot of what you and your colleagues had asked, and I'm happy to elaborate on them. But I also want to mention that this Friday, myself and the entire marketing team will be on our lab gab. And so we'll answer any questions. There's actually a submission form ahead of time that we're going, and we're starting to put all of those together. So we'll be taking those questions for that as well. But if there's any short-term questions on marketing, I don't want to go off topic here. So a lot of non-marketing topics, but as appropriate, I can answer them. There were some questions that were not marketing related, and so I would toss that to my colleagues if anyone wants to jump in. I think they have seen them, so I will toss it to them. But on the marketing front, I'm happy to address above what's mentioned in the blog post anything that people may have.
Brooke, replying to your message, yeah, we don't know what would be causing that. Charlotte, there were a number of JIRA you listed, and we should probably talk about them one by one. There's several that I think Brett already addressed, but a few more that we wanted to follow up on. The first one is listing dates. And there's some complexity there. We had looked into this here. I'll paste the links as I'm talking, and then I will catch up. So we've talked about this a bunch, and we've looked at how to implement this. There's a bit of complexity there because we need to figure out what we give preference to, for example, whether it's when the listing was created or when it became available, and how we deal with updates, etc. It's on our roadmap, but it is going to be lift. So what we're looking at end of after Q. The next one was limited quantity remaining items. Reed, you want to talk about that one?
That one is also in the queue for after uplift at the moment. We're trying to discuss what the best way to implement that is. Literally today, had that conversation.
Yes, we did. And there's some every issue we touch, turns out there's additional complexity that we need to figure out in order to do things right.
Yeah, I really thought I had this one solved for you guys. I really did. I did not.
Yesterday we were like, oh, we've got some good news. I think we can get this in pretty easy. And lastly, I wanted to give an update on variants. There was a bunch of work done on implementing variants and really good progress made. Ultimately, though, we had to defer those until after uplift as well. The amount of work required to get them right and then figure out all the bugs that would inevitably follow is just more than we can handle. All of the uplift work is complete. Seriously, Toothless. I can't believe it myself. Blueberry, that's right. Uplift means not transferring data. Data is easy. Transferring all of the Second Life infrastructure to the cloud. And I am looking forward to having our engineering team on a future LabGab, date TBA, but penciled in for the moment, to talk a little bit more about Uplift, because we kind of use this a lot, and I know it may sound like an excuse for not doing other stuff. I'd much rather be working on features, but this is absolutely the right thing for us. And I'm catching up to the chat now. Charlotte, the gotcha dupe bug is not a single bug. There are many um, approaches that are taken to do this, and so we keep closing various ways that nefarious actors use to dupe content that is supposed to be no copy, but new ones get discovered, and then we address those, and we continue the game of whack-a-mole. There's work currently underway looking into yet another path. So I'd like to say we can completely address that issue, but unfortunately, there's no guarantee that a new way to do this won't happen. Did I miss anything? Blueberry, this is why I said we have a lab gap coming up where our engineering team will talk more about what the Uplift project entails and truly what it looks like. I don't think the web user group really is the best place for it, but I do understand that people want to understand it.
I'm going to jump in and just add a little bit of information on the marketing side for the move to the cloud. On the topic of the lab gab, I'm working with Strawberry, who's also here, I think, to lock down a date. I'm going to tentatively say we're looking at April 3rd. That could change. It's a Friday, I believe, for that move to the cloud dedicated Q&A lab gab. And we're going to have Linden and two of his colleagues, the key personnel involved in that will go into great detail about it, if that helps.
We're not transferring it from department to department, Blueberry. It's just that as the VP of product, I'm not necessarily the best person to talk about the engineering undertaking of Uplift. And while I'd love to be able to answer all questions thoroughly, I don't think I'd do it justice. me a second. I'm catching up with chat. Okay. Working back. Axel, we haven't had such plans, as far as I know. I think this is a great idea for us to consider. Kira, let's chat about that afterwards.
Yeah, I have a few ideas about that, either with last names or otherwise having an
Awesome.
indicator of merchant status. So definitely.
Charlotte, ballpark on time change of success. I'm not sure what that refers to. The second part of that question, whether there'll be increased governance to remove the stores. We are reviewing and changing some of the processes in how we address repeat offenders for reselling DMCA'd and stolen content. I can't go into too much detail until that policy has been approved, but it's working its way through. And we're pushing on it, making it out on the other end and being implemented. Annie Melson, Second Life doesn't show up on search engines. I think this is a fantastic question for Friday's Lab Gab with Brett. Are you up to it, Brett?
Yeah, I kind of want to answer that now, actually.
Go for it.
Well, I mean, I would love to see that in case, which search engine, Google, Bing, where are you located, any variables to see that. In my searches and the searches that we're doing, it's actually showing up at #1. That's non-paid organic, but I don't doubt that that's your experience. So I'd want to find out more if you want to send me to Brett at Linden Lab. I'll put it in chat so I can research it, because obviously that's an anomaly that I'm not seeing. But if others are not seeing it in search engine results, I would certainly want to. I'm looking right now and I'm seeing it in multiple search engines coming from the west coast of the US. So SEO or search engine optimization, both paid and organic, are big things that we work on. So showing up prominently there is important for everybody. Thank you, Annie. Okay, so if it's a non-branded search for general keyword search terms, that's a great topic. I'll go into greater depth later on Friday, but the short version is we have both branded and non-branded keyword and display strategies in terms of depending on what phrases or keywords you put in, you're going to get different results. So if it's something organic, then certain keywords we're going to trigger better responses to than others. There's a lot of long tail search keyword responses. So for example, you just search for vampire virtual world game as one example. That's one we would aim to target, and other sort of niche based searches as well. But it's really tricky. If it's a branded search, Second Life, somebody knows the brand, we're going to show up prominently above the scroll on page 1 without doing anything in terms of paid. We do paid efforts that target on the harder to trigger a match keyword phrases that are non-branded. So for example, if you're not seeing us on the first page of those results, it may very well be that we do target those with paid search efforts. That doesn't mean that everybody's going to see it every single time. I'll double check with our performance marketing person, Darcy, who'll join me on Friday to see that those particular phrases are in circulation. What might be helpful for me though, is if you have specific keyword phrases that you think we should be triggering a match on and you're not seeing that, I can double check on that and see to verify that we are or are not targeting them. But again, Darcy Linden, who's my colleague, is the one who, on a day-to-day basis, that. But we definitely do trigger keyword matches across the board, both for organic and when we don't have natural organic presence, we will do paid efforts to sort of boost our presence across the board, specifically for keywords that speak to specific niches and segments. Like I mentioned, vampire game. Just fill in the blank, romance game across the board. I shouldn't use the word, but just keywords that the general non-SL user might look for that SL might trigger a map should be eligible to trigger. So it's a big deal for us, and one of the things we get. There we go. I'm looking. Lots of phrases in keywords, but there's actually thousands and thousands of variations that are actually in play right now. So it's a really detailed thing, but there's a lot of keywords and phrases that we constantly are matched to. So if something's absent from that, I want to know that should be showing up. Yes, thank you. And please do write me and I will give you a more detailed response, but I would love to see what phrases that you're looking at. Again, doesn't mean we're going to show up on every single phrase and keyword. There's a whole science and art to what shows up and when, and based on our budget and our bidding and on and on and on. But certainly we're in play. We're in that game as far as the keyword bidding that goes against competitors.
All right. The account, listing DMCA'd items is not going to be automatically actioned. However, as I mentioned, we're reviewing our practices on actioning accounts, repeatedly found selling content that violates the terms of service. And there is an escalation path that leads to terminating and taking the store down. We're reviewing that path and making some changes into how those accounts get actioned. Blueberry, your question was, is it fair to say that we aren't getting new marketplace features this year? And the answer is no. I think that you're going to see new marketplace features start rolling out again around Q3. But until then, most of what you're going to see will be fixes and small tweaks. Larger features in Q3. I agree completely, Charlotte. Virtual worlds are a great way not to be isolated during outbreaks. We've been trying to come up with the best way to say that without. My proposal yesterday was social distancing without social isolation. Jack, regarding the website that is selling large amounts of IP that is not theirs, we can't do anything about a website that is not run by us unless there is IP that belongs to Linden Lab, and then we would have to follow the same process of filing a DMCA with whatever entity we'd be able to find website. Is it possible to add in the future to edit multiple listings at the same time, keeping the same related items and images? It's certainly possible, June. It would be great to have a feature request describing in a little more detail how that should work, or pointing me to one if it already exists. I think this would partially be addressed in the variance work that's coming later in the year, but I can't say that this would necessarily satisfy your needs just from that question. Oh, there was another question about bulk image upload, and fingers crossed that may come pretty soon for marketplace listings. Sonia, I didn't sneak the variants past you. I said we have been working on variants, and we had to defer that work until after Uplift. So look for it in the later second half of 2020, which will be here before you know it. The cost of Premium Plus.
Ha ha ha.
I thought that was Reed laughing, but not. We are going to come out with what you're getting and for how much really soon. But we're not quite ready to talk about it yet, because then the next thing you're going to ask is when you're going to be able to finally get it, and we can't put a date on it yet, and so all of these things are connected. Right, it's very easy to change the creator on an item. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm misunderstanding what you mean, in which case a feature request in Jira would help me and the rest of the team interpret the ask and see if this would be helpful in addressing the problem of copybotting.
Frankie, we've talked about that before. It's not currently on the roadmap.
About minor premium, yeah. We had talked about many different ways to implement different premium levels. And we talked about a la carte, where you get to choose which premium benefits you want and which ones you don't. And we talked about introducing additional package levels. But ultimately, what is rolling out right now is Premium Plus. Um, and 3 levels of service is probably enough confusion both for us and for that said. One of the things we'd like to do, but I would certainly not commit to doing in any near-term future, is to find a way to decouple mainland ownership from premium in some reasonable and straightforward way. We've explored it. It's not reasonable, straightforward, but hopefully the end easier to digest, especially for a new user. I'm loving all of the uh, you don't have to get infected while playing Second Life suggestions.
Jack, I'm willing to tease on that one. Yes.
Charlotte, the Lindex blog is actually, I'm going to direct that question at Brett because I don't know the latest of it. It's pretty much written, but I
Yeah,
think
there's a
it's
draft. There is a draft, and so we're aware that there's questions about it. Just to be really honest about it, there is a lot of internal review on it. The language choices that we use, specifically as it pertains to the Lindex, is something that we just want to be careful about. But that doesn't mean we don't want to address the specific questions that we know you have about it. So I'm going to say, I hesitate to say a date because I don't want to be wrong, but I'll just put it this way. We have a draft that is close to final, and our legal team is looking at it. So I don't know, Grumpy, if I should say a date or not, but I'd say it's very, very close. And by the way, I should add too, there's a combination of goals with that blog post. One is to specifically address what we know are some questions that people have about the Lindex. And the other is to sort of reintroduce to people to what it is and how it works. As we recognize for some people, it's almost a 101 primer on, on how to use the Lindex and that sort of thing. So it's sort of a combination of those two things that are that I've seen at least.
Charlotte. I could certainly get back to you with the listing of the jury you pre-submitted. Um, if not in a blog, then in some other medium. I think the answer to most of them has been not until after Uplift, with a few exceptions that we talked about here. Another exception that I remember looking at the list is There's long been an ask of having multiple stores for a single merchant so that one merchant could have many storefronts. We've thoroughly investigated it, and it would be a complete overhaul of the marketplace because the marketplace was built with the assumption of one merchant, one storefront. Uh, it seems like our efforts are better directed at doing a ton of other things. So this is a no.
Charlotte, we are not targeting a second gen marketplace in 2020. No.
Honey, in terms of the Premium Plus, I don't think you need to stay quiet on the changes to the viewer code. We're aware that once those changes go out, they are visible to the community. So you can surmise that benefits which had been hard-coded before will now be fetched from a central service determine the value of those benefits. Is that obscure enough? June, we believe that gacha are completely different. Well, not completely. They are significantly different from loot boxes, and therefore we're not considering that gacha would be banned from Second Life. Blueberry, your point is absolutely taken. If there were to be a fee increase this year, we would make sure to announce it with a lot more advanced warning. Dream Funeral, by the way, cool name, did Was there another suggestion that I missed for specifically how we could support new designers? Because on the face of it, I absolutely agree that we should have more support for new designers so that they can enter Second Life and get a fair chance. Okay, Lucy, reading up. A feasibility question. An option for pricing to automatically keep up with changes in the Linden dollar exchange rate. Oh, not
I have put,
quite.
yeah, I
Sorry,
put
go
my
ahead.
answer to that in the chat. You're behind.
It's an interesting, I see. So what I think we would be more likely to implement is and something that we have put on the roadmap for the longer term is a system that would allow discounting in sales, or, if you want to do a negative sale, and you could then do it across the board on.
The watch list idea, Lucy's, that's interesting. I think we could definitely probably implement that. We already send a lot of emails out, so we want to be kind of careful. But yeah, I would say submit
Ability to
that one.
watch a store seems very plausible. We certainly have favorites already. By the way, did I mention we have favorites? We have favorites and wish lists. So we could look into an ability to watch a store. That'd be cool. And scrolling up again. Sorry, I'm just one sock monkey. Okay. Axel, I'd like to give you a more satisfactory question. Unfortunately, each one of these cases gets reviewed manually by the governance team uh, after the assessment happens, and it's another one of those situations where we're reviewing our process and trying to strike a balance between making the merchant whole and making the account, which was the used to spend that money whole, and making sure that process that we're used, and it needs some work. On the other side, what we're also doing is working on a way to faster notify account holders in case of a suspicious login, which is the first step on the path to factor authorization solution. You should see some of that soon. That work is in QA and making some progress. Phew! We have 4 minutes left, and I'm sure I missed some questions. For which I apologize. I swear I tried to go as fast as I could, and I did my best not to leave anybody out. So, Mina, we were actually just discussing this last week. This is a great idea, and we are talking about how to move it forward. We have some possibilities. It's obviously not going to be, instantaneous that will set this up. But yeah. We should be able to give some updates to creators and have a call for submissions in the coming months. Kara, do we have anything more specific than that to say?
Nothing more specific than what you've said right now. It's still kind of in the ideation phase of, how we would want it to look and the layout and everything like that. So until we're able to get that all fleshed out, we wouldn't have too much detail about it. Yeah, Freebie Island is a model that we looked at. The different free areas that used to be around the grid on mainland regions was something that we were thinking about. So we're rolling a couple of things around, and we may even come to you guys and say, here's what we're, thinking about doing, and maybe get some opinions, something like that. So we'll it's still kind of being talked about at this point.
Annie, I would actually love it if you could give us more details about what happened to this new user and why they were frustrated. We've been testing a bunch of ideas with new user welcome areas and iterating on those tests for some time. In fact, don't all go creating alts and now, but in fact, we have another test running right now.
Dream Funeral, the meetings happen on the first Wednesday of every month.
I have an event for the next one even. Hold on. Because we can now schedule recurring events.
I have also put the full schedule on the wiki page for the web user group. So for 2020, they're all in there. You're welcome, Sonia. And with that, we are 1 minute over time, so I'm going to go ahead and call this the end. Really glad everybody showed up. Please show up to the next one. If we missed any of your questions, which I don't think we did, I think we got pretty much everybody.
I'm sure
but
we
I'm
did.
sure you'll come up with more. Feel free to contact support, submit a JIRA. We do look at all of the bug reports and the feature requests. We have a weekly triage. We see everything. So that is always the best way to contact us. In the meantime, we will see you next week, or next month, pardon me.
And it was intense, but super exciting to have all of you here. I really, really appreciate everybody showing up. And I hope you continue coming, because this is great.
Tell your friends. There's always room for more.
Well, there actually are some limitations. But we can certainly, if this keeps up, we can certainly set up a four corners if needed.
Heck yeah. We will make the user group to end all user groups. We'll be able to walk around the office and lord it over Oz. My user group's bigger than yours.
We have the best
Wow,
user group.
Reed. All right, I have to run. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thanks, everybody.